Let's head back to our main story now, where the African National Congress held a media briefing a short while ago with regards to its Secretary General Magashule and the imminent arrest that he is set to receive by the Hawks. He will be appearing in court then on Friday, asking then the public not to make any regalia or even march on the court on Friday when he is set to appear. My colleague Samkele Maseko has been following this for us then as we get to grips with the story. Samkele, thank you so much for the time. So the ANC certainly not leaving their SG out to dry in this case and saying that they fully support him nonetheless. That's according to Jessie Duarte.
Essentially, Arabile, what the ANC did today is that they portrayed that they don't have any guidelines when it comes to the issue of stepping aside of their leaders. You'd remember that Michael Mabuya in KZN had stepped aside. He had to be brought back into the fore by the Provincial Executive Committee of the African National Congress in KwaZulu-Natal due to the fact that the NEC is still seized with this matter of stepping aside. The ANC's briefing today of the top six, led by Jessie Duarte, the Deputy Secretary General, and also the Treasurer General Paul Mashatile, essentially was saying that the SG remains in the office at the 6th floor of Luthuli House, is not going anywhere at this point in time. The NEC is still seized with preparing the guidelines for those leaders who are implicated in corruption, fraud, and whatever charges they may be facing in the courts of law, on which guidelines should be followed. There are no guidelines as it stands. And in the meeting they had in the top six yesterday, 5 of them were present except the national chairperson, Gwede Mantashe, who was on a flight, in the words of Deputy Secretary General Jessie Duarte. So essentially, in that meeting, they never discussed the stepping down or the stepping aside of the Secretary General, which is in fact stepping aside, not stepping down. They didn't discuss that. The SG still remains in office. They didn't discuss the implications of the court case. The ANC only received a briefing from the Secretary General, who requested the meeting to update the ANC officials on the letter that he's received from the Hawks and from the NPA, which seeks for him to appear in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court on Friday on charges related to not playing an effective oversight role while he was still the Premier of the Free State Province when the 255 million rand asbestos case was awarded. So essentially, what the SG did yesterday was just to brief the ANC officials and categorically put it that he does not want any ANC member or leader to mobilize any marches in his name, to print any T-shirts in his name that show that 100% behind Ace Magashule or hands of Ace Magashule. He says he does not want any of that. He does not want any marches. He's going to go to court as an individual. And ANC leaders and members should not support anyone who's involved in active acts of corruption. Those are the words of the ANC Secretary General, in the words of Jessie Duarte, in yesterday's top six meeting, which was attended by 5 officials of the African National Congress. So essentially, it means that Ace Magashule, unlike former President Jacob Zuma, is saying that he does not want any crowd support outside court. He will not essentially be addressing any rallies outside court, and he's essentially calling for calm, and that he's going to adhere to these charges as an individual.
Samkele, is there anything that we can read into that? And I only ask because surely then if you believe you're innocent, it wouldn't matter whether you have support or not. And even though you're going through a court case like this, you would stand firm behind your own beliefs, and it wouldn't matter whether you have support or not, particularly from the party you've represented for most of your life. Should we be reading anything into the fact that he doesn't want any support from the ANC in this regard, or is this just really him perhaps trying to take as much of a high road as possible?
This is Ace Magashule trying to take the high road as much as possible. No politician, particularly when they are charged with issues of fraud and corruption, would not want any political support outside court. Essentially, the court of public opinion for politicians is essentially won in that battleground, in those political rallies they have outside court. You've seen it with the EFF leader Julius Malema, which is something that was started by the former president of the ANC, that would be Jacob Zuma, during his tenure as the deputy president of the country, when he was asked by former President Mbeki, who also was still the former president of the ANC. He started this issue of political rallies outside court. If you'd remember, where he was outside the Pietermaritzburg Regional High Court, he would address rallies, particularly during that era when he was charged with fraud and corruption relating to the arms deal, where you saw the likes of Kgalema Motlanthe, the former SG of the ANC, the likes of Zwelinze Mavavi, the likes of Fikile Mbalula supporting him. Later on, you see him recently as well outside the High Court in Durban, addressing magnitudes of of ANC members in those particular rallies. EFF also does it. So it's a culture that has become synonymous with African political formations, or predominantly black political formations in the country. When their leaders are in court, you do have an entourage of leaders outside court supporting those particular leaders. You also saw it in the court cases that were taking place to nullify the 2015 conference of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. So Ace Magashule is taking the high road here, but essentially you will see his supporters like Mzwandile Masina, like Carl Niehaus, mobilizing support for Ace Magashule. You can in fact even see that there will be certain members of the Provincial Executive Committee of the African National Congress in the Free State Province that will come out in support of their former longest serving provincial chairperson of the ANC nationally and of the Free State, coming out to support Elias Sekgobela Magashule in court on Friday at the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. So you will definitely see some crowd support, particularly mobilized by ANC members and leaders as individuals.
Yeah. Samkele, another question then to you. The ANC has noted, of course, that they respect the rule of law. Paul Mashatile coming out and saying that today. But previously, Ace Magashule has indeed come out to really say that the courts are being used effectively as a pawn here against him in many ways, and really trying to get at him in many instances. Has that rhetoric still remained in a time like this?
Ace Magashule, for the past 2 years, has said that state institutions and law enforcement agencies are being used to fight political battles within the African National Congress. You'd remember that the faction in the ANC that was seemingly fighting former President Jacob Zuma used to say that the former president is using state institutions like state security to tap and listen to people's phones, and they're using state organs to fight factional battles of the African National Congress. How the wheels of justice turn and how the political system just turns, and there are no permanent friends in politics. Today it's those who were in power for the past 10 years during the era of former President Jacob Zuma are crying foul now in saying this administration led by President Cyril Ramaphosa is using state organs to fight factional battles. You'd remember Ace Magashule did say that in the Free State as well about a year ago, that in Paris that state institutions are being used and that their phone calls are being tapped and listened to. He was alongside Stumo Dlamini in that particular rally, and David Mahlobo, the Deputy Minister of Human Settlements and Water and Sanitation. So essentially you've got that particular political rhetoric going on within the African National Congress of state institutions being used to fight factional battles. We've also had tweets from the Ekurhuleni mayor and the Ekurhuleni regional chairperson, Mzwandile Masina, alluding to that particular matter of state institutions being used to fight factional battles. So essentially the ANC SG Ace Magashule did not raise this particular issue in the top 6 meeting that was held yesterday, in the words of Paul Mashatile, the Treasurer General, and the Deputy Secretary General Jessie Duarte. So it remains a political speech and political rhetoric outside of formal structural meetings of the ANC. But in one top 6 meeting, the ANC president, in that particular briefing that was done by the top 6 to the media, he did say that the SG had raised these particular matters in the past to the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress.
Samkele Maseko, always good chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon then here on Point. Political reporter there, senior political reporter Samkele Maseko, as we talk about Ace Magashule's court case then set for Friday in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. The SG of the African National Congress not asking for any support, not asking for anybody to march to the courts or even print any regalia in his name as he appears in court then on Friday. The Hawks issuing yesterday a warrant of arrest for the SG Ace Magashule there in connection with the 255 million rand asbestos case that we've continuously followed. We'll continue to have more on that story, of course, for you as and when it continues.